Hey, this is Tom again from Audio Audio, and I'm going to be showing you how to make a bass house drop. So we're going to be looking at a very UK vibe bass, and I've just drawn out the basic MIDI for the default sound in Serum. So let's have a listen to that. We're at 125 BPM, and it's just a standard bass line that we have just here. Let's have a listen. So as you can hear, it sounds pretty awful just now, but we're going to open up Serum and we are going to play about. So I like to start playing in Serum with the sine wave. We can play about with the shape a bit, but start off clean, and that's when we add various things. So I'm just going to loop this and start playing about with the wavetable position, get the initial tone and the initial envelope. We're looking for quite a standard UK bass house donk sound, which we could maybe then reverse into more of a whoop, like a fast attack. So let's have a little play about. I quite like that, it's ever so slightly dirty. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase the release to start with. And we also want to drop the sustain so it's a bit punchier. Shorten the decay a bit, just so it's a pluck more than anything. We can even tighten the attack to 0. Give it a bit of click. Let's have a play about with this envelope, also modulating the wavetable position. So we only want it to work a little bit because we're about to bring in oscillator B. So I'm going to copy oscillator A to B, and if you can hear, it's just the same, but we're going to add some more effects. Let's try with a bit of FM. So this will, as it turns up, get modulated from that, and if we just keep it the same for now, and then what we'll do, we'll trigger the modulation with this envelope. It's always good to use as few envelopes as possible so that the whole sound works as one. Okay, so we have our basic outline. Let's add a bit of a sub for extra weight. Let's keep it quite dirty. So let's turn that off for now. So we can hear at this bit, we've got a slightly higher up bit. What we want to do is make all the high up notes do something, so trigger something else. So let's set the attack and set the mod source to the note number. Now if we watch this dot here, when it plays, we'll see where each note falls, and then we can play about with this note envelope. This is something that a lot of people don't play about with, but it's very handy if you want to have different sounds split across different octaves. So in this region here, towards the middle is the high notes, and then down here is the low ones. What we want is to isolate the low ones to the bottom. And so these do not trigger it, but as it goes higher up, it does. So it just adds a bit of attack as soon as the note goes up the way, and that just spreads this out. If you want to play about with the different notes, then that's great. What we can also do, we can play about with the velocity. This is normally just linear, and let's add the velocity to play about with the release. This is very handy if you're actually jamming out your bass lines on the keyboard. Not so much if you're just drawing it in on the MIDI yourself, because then you'll have to add the different velocities manually. But really handy to have just a little tiny bit of variation. And also let's do it here, just so it's a tiny bit more. So this means when you hit the note louder, the resting volume while the note's held goes a bit higher, and it also lasts a bit longer too. Now we're going to play about with the filter. I'm going to go straight in and add a comb filter because these are my favourite. So we're just going to select all the sounds currently playing. Okay, so that's messing about with the velocity, so let's make it go the other way, almost counterintuitively. The harder it plays, the shorter the release. So we have quite a nice sound. It's just carved out some of the mid frequencies, boosted some of the bass. Comb filters are good, you play about and it changes the sound in ways that you can't control with conventional filters. So let's add some roughness to it. Let's add some tube distortion. Always good to have it at a dry wet mix. Let's envelope it as well, so it's got a bit more hit. We can actually do the opposite. Ooh. And we can add some compression. Let's make it multi-band. And let's bring the distortion down a bit. So even with that, we have quite good sounding preset. Let's add some reverb filter. This one's really interesting. This sounds almost like a respace. So we've got quite a hard-hitting sound. So now what we can do is we can go into the wavetables of this one in particular, and we can just remove selected to the end, so we only have the sound that we wanted. And now we're gonna add, now we're just gonna play about a bit, which is gonna mess the sound up. Just draw various things in, couple of harmonics, and then just mess about like that. And we're gonna morph it. So let's just do a spectral morph, and let's have a look at what happens. All of a sudden we've got a totally different tone. So what we could do, we could set the LFO to modulate that for the drop, but otherwise we can just turn the FM off for the standard builds, or for the bass lines, or where you only want the sub. Let's pitch this down an octave and see how that sounds. So that sounds way more aggressive, and now we can play about with the unison. Playing about with the detune and attaching it to an LFO is a really good way of making it spread and making the sound move about your head, because it's detuning into different ears and it's always changing, so that's a really good way of doing it. So all of a sudden we have a spacious sound without having to add the hyperdimension, and we can turn it on and off just by messing with the LFO. We can just drag various bits down. I've already messed it up. And we can just play about. Let's say we want more distortion. Then we just need to add the macro. And let's say we want it to sound more compressed as well, add a macro. But in line with that, we actually want to drop the reverb filter, and we can also play about, add grittier wavetable, and also add a bit more FM. So when we play about with this macro, we'll call this heaviness. So we've not even tested this. This will go far more extreme than we'll ever want, I imagine. But just by randomly assigning things to different macros, you can create sound. And if you just chuck a macro on a random knob without even looking at what it does, it can quite often lead to happy accidents. So let's play about with this. Now I really like that. That's got a really nice thwump sound. I don't even know if that's a proper word, but pretty standard FM sound mixed with something a lot heavier that only Serum could do. And now let's add a second one. This one will be all about timing, so we're going to make this go shorter. Actually, if you hold, I can't remember which one is it, Alt or Control Alt? No, Alt Shift? Yes, Alt Shift is one of those shortcuts where you can make it go bidirectional. So just by playing with the envelopes, not the envelopes, sorry, the macros, and what they modulate, you can suddenly play about with the time a lot better. Let's make this one add a bit more release and also a bit more attack. Let's not do all the attack. And we'll also increase, what else should we increase? We'll increase a bit of the filter cutoff frequency. So let's play about with that one. Okay, that was going into overdrive, so we will have to turn this down to listen to it all the way up. Or it may well have just been maxing out the CPU. So let's bring it back up. So now we've got the two macros where we can just, instead of tweaking 100 knobs, we only need to tweak 2, and then we can play about and find various different sounds. So you can just completely modify the sound. And so this is quite a soft one. Maybe for the softer bass houses, maybe it will complement a growl. But this would always be very good with an accompaniment, or just hitting in really hard with a kick drum. So let's do just that. Let's add a kick drum. We'll just go onto the Media Explorer. I have a cymatics one open just now. What else? Music production, electronic genres. Let's do bass house samples. There we go, that will do. Drag it in, Shift W on Reaper to make it stretch. Don't need to open any windows. And let's play about now. And all of a sudden you've got a drop. You could even do something like this. Let's get just a hi-hat and macro 2, and we'll just automate it. And because we've set it to the filter which rises, we'll be able to get a rising effect. We'll turn the record off, and now we'll just freeze it. Actually, we'll add a limiter so it doesn't clip, and then freeze it. We'll just add loud max. All plugins. This just stops it clipping. Freeze tracks, stereo. And let's have a listen. Metronome off. So you got a funky bass line. Now all you need is some girl with an English accent rapping over that, and you have yourself a pretty typical UK bass track.